Hi all, I have another amazing game of Wei Yi. This was in the Tata Steel Group B tournament, which he managed to win eventually. In round 2 on the 11th of January 2015, that's this year, he was playing against Vladimir Potkin, a 2608 opponent. So a very formidable Grandmaster opponent, I assume from that rating. Absolutely, 2600 is GM level. So Wei Yi was 2675 though, slightly higher rated. Let's see what happened. E4 from Wei Yi, and we see actually a French defense. And Wei Yi chooses D4. After D5, he invites the winner variation. But black has other choices. He actually chose Knight F6, which is more classical, called the classical variation, in fact, the classical system. It's inviting white to close the center. So we have a closed game here. White has some choices here. In Livebook, the most popular is Bishop G5 actually, but E5 is the second most popular, and that was played. Still thousands of games here. The knight goes back, F4, and black plays C5. So black's typical French defense strategy is to put pressure on D4, trying to undermine white's pawn chain in the center. Knight F3, Knight C6. Great logic to the French defense, just hitting D4. Bishop E3. And here there's some concern that maybe the B5 square is useful for white. Black plays A6. This is the most common move actually, to play A6. Also C takes D4 has been played before. Queen D2. B5, common continuation. And usually white plays D takes C5 here. That's the main kind of move. There's over 600 games here. What is played here is quite a rare bird actually. A3, about nearly 500 games in Livebook. Bishop E2, 121. But Bishop D3 was played here. Very unusual looking Bishop D3. Just to give you a gist, you know, D takes, this kind of continuation, yes, has been seen a lot before. And black is usually getting some counterplay. You notice an exchange of pawns here. Now look at the game continuation. This is interesting. Bishop D3, maybe trying to unhinge black a little bit, take him into unfamiliar territory. He plays B4, fair enough. And we see knight A4 now. The knight looks a bit awkward on A4 potentially. Is it trappable? Now here we really are coming out of Livebook significantly after this B4, knight A4. Usually knight D1 is played. So it seems something's a little bit odd about white's play. Is he really trying to take black off the rails, or is there some problem with this? Knight D1 is the usual move, not knight A4. And you know, games continue like this, for example, where black is often, I think, trying to get rid of, well, exchange off the light square bishop. So this has been seen before. So knight A4, is this like provocation? So we see now C4, black actually releasing the tension in the center. Now if this is not followed up correctly in the right circumstances, often players with black will get blasted completely later on the king's side if they're not careful, because by releasing that central tension with such a move, you're giving the opponent a free hand. He can actually play on this side of the board without having to worry about any central exchanges or pressure somewhere else. If you get this free hand, it's very, very dangerous. So maybe this is a kind of strategically questionable move to play C4. It releases that tension. But on the other hand, this is a very rare position in any case. It's actually been the move played 6 times. C takes only once. So it's a rare position in any case. And now the point here, black usually plays for this C3, which looks like playing for a little trap. Actually, it's like, it's this continuation. If this is what it's based on, the knight on A4, it's like white has put out this knight to be kind of put into a trap. Now here there's a trap idea. White bypasses it by playing Queen D1. White bypasses it totally. So this pawn is actually protected by the knight in any case. If he had played B takes C3, can you see what crushing move black has available in this position if I give you 5 seconds, starting from now? Okay, Queen A5 really exploits the knight on A4. What does white do here? If he goes here, then splat. Whoops. Okay, so Queen A5 would be the bone crusher. So yeah, Queen D1, and it seems as though, well, if the knight isn't being trapped, then this provocative play has been a total success here, because black has released the tension in the position. White's centre is really much more solid than usual in the French defence. This is a major factor for the success of kingside attacks. There's extra space in the centre, sort of reducing black's defensive potential. We see c takes b2, knight takes b2, and this looks, you know, might be rerouted in the future. Not a problem at the moment. Bishop e7, and both sides castle, and now white just starts pointing things at the king. Knight g5 is actually an immediate concern. Just, you know, maybe queen h5. There's a free hand here, because you notice with this pawn chain, very aggressive pawn chain, there's no defensive knight on f6. It's an attacking player's dream pawn chain in many respects, just to be able to easily get pieces to the opponent's king. Now black plays something really radical. He plays f5, which is actually, in a way, it's creating yet another free hand that's already been created on an existing free hand. Because actually, if a move like a5, say, keeping some options open for bishop e6, and if there's no immediate penalty tactically, I think this might have been a little bit better. For example, like this play on the queen side, it's just h6. This is less committal than f5, because the problem with f5, it can be used as a lever here, which Wei Yi does brilliantly, to rip open this g file. Without f5, it would be more difficult just with a pawn on h6 to open up a file against the black king. But here, can you see what Wei Yi plays? I've given you some clues here. 5 seconds from now, how would you react to f5 in this position, starting from now? So you've already got this free hand on the king side. g4, trying to open up the g file. Now, it's really quite vicious, but black is not able to really do very much here. If he plays f takes g4, simply knight d2, and we're going to get that g file. You know, for h5, then bishop g6, these pawns are just dropping off. Black's sort of suffocated on this side of the board. This is a congestion problem typical of the French defence, and it's one of the reasons myself I try to avoid the French defence after one particularly disastrous season, where actually, yes, with black I was giving opponents free hands, and I was not without too much counterplay, similar to this sort of position, often worse. So the French defence, if you're not careful and your king's in the wrong place, you've really got no prospects. It's very, very difficult to get tactical resources as black. And in fact, you know, when you play like club chess, it's often a good idea to play the Sicilian just to try and get pawns exchanged off, to try and get some piece play. Here, black is without counterplay, so he can't really take this. It's just easy for white to just build up an attack. He plays a5, at least trying to maybe potentially swap off this attacking bishop. But we have this g file now being created. G takes. So how will white make use of this g file? We see queen e2 slowing down any bishop a6, and also maybe dual purpose, because later just shuffle on g7 potentially, or bring the rooks up, try and treble. We see knight b6, king h1, the king's getting out of the way. So yes, this pawn structure is basically asking for a g file attack here. Open file to black's king. a4. Is this queenside counterplay worth anything? It doesn't really, unless it creates a major pass pawn in an endgame. It seems a bit unlikely at the moment. Rook g1, a3, and now black really is fixed down on the queen side. Knight a4, trying to be a nuisance. Rook g3, preparing to put more pressure now on g7, and still stopping, you know, black with the bishop a6. So queen g2 will be hitting g7. Rook f7, and now finally queen g2 here. So it's as if black's given the opportunity for bishop a6, but it's not particularly useful in this position in any case. Black for the moment keeps the bishop on c8, trying to protect f5. In fact, it may even falter here to something like bishop takes f5, because black's got to be careful about the rook takes g7 possibility. So maybe something like bishop f5 is possible there. He actually played knight c3, knight takes c3, b takes c3, and you see, yes, black's defending with certain key resources, certain key points, but the g7 point is the really major one. Now here I think I would regard this as one of the star moves of this game, because it would seem a lot of players would routinely just treble. Why not just treble on g7? Because it's just asking for trebling and a rook sacrifice just to make the opponent's king. You know, if ever any g6, just sack the rook and break through for a mate. But there was another move played which is actually technically, in many respects, much stronger. Can you guess what it is? I've given you a major clue. It's not rook g1. If I give you 5 seconds here, what would you play with white? Okay, this is quite amazing actually from an attacking player's handbook. Bishop b5. I don't know how to categorize this move. It gives extra attacking resources. This as an attacking resource was blunted, but here this diagonal, it's threatening sometimes moves like bishop e8 if needed. If the queen was on f8, then bishop e8 is dangerous as a distraction of g7. So it's actually gaining access potentially to e8, as well as asking black concretely, what do you do about the c6 knight? And there's various possibilities here which are very, very unpleasant. If bishop b7, the weakness of the last move here is it's not guarding against e6, bang, and then g7 will drop if the rook moves, end of game, immediate execution. Bishop d7, same sort of problem, bishop takes and then e6. Okay, so you start to get the gist of things. Knight a5, we just build up here, and then we've got this bishop e8. Ouch. it's just horrible, winning material, and the attack's going to continue. So it's a very horrible set of options. Again, this one, bishop e8. So what does black actually do here? Knight b8, rook g1, again bishop e8. So there's various ideas. Bishop e8 is introduced, e6 is sometimes introduced if the bishop's lured away from protecting the e6 square. Very nasty move. We see queen b6 in response. It's a pretty bad position. Now, is it hitting the bishop? Well, actually, this is ignored. Rook g1, because white's attack will just crash through here if it's taken. Black actually played bishop f8. Just to show that to you, if queen takes b5, now, pardon me, sorry, queen b6, rook g1. So we're saying black actually played bishop f8 here. Now, if he takes on b5 instead, then rook takes g7 looks absolutely crushing here. This is just mating. That's just intolerable. So you can't do that. But the more interesting point is coming up actually after bishop f8 now. That does the bishop need to move in this position? What would you play here? Black seems to have defended now 2 pieces g7. Is that the end of the story? Because you can't use the g file, it seems to smash through. e6 has been stopped in its tracks. This seems to have been dealt with to some large extent. What does white play in this position? If I give you 5 seconds, starting from now. Okay, rook h3, a fantastic move, leaving the bishop hanging here. Black actually played g6 in this position. So why? Why not take the bishop in this position? This is the more interesting question about the bishop. Here, rook takes h7 is really, really dangerous, threatening queen h3 and mating. So if taking, check, and here knight g5, the queen and knight coordinate beautifully. Black's restriction, that typical French defense restriction, is not helping. If this is the best move, technically that's not a good sign. Queen takes, check, and I'm mating. The queen and knight are crushing here. Yeah, so this bishop's kind of immune. White's attack is just absolutely murderous in this position if rook takes h7 is allowed. So actually G6 trying to sort of parry against that. Rook takes H7. And now again the bishop is left with knight G5. This is going to be terrible if taking knight takes F7, crashing through. Isn't it? Well, actually that was what was played here. Finally, black succumbed to taking the bishop. If he plays rook G7, then actually, whoa, yes, queen takes D5 check, and here knight takes H7 is murderous, taking check, rook takes G6 crashing through on the G file. Yes, absolutely murderous position. So yes, black actually in this position, because actually it's not just hitting the rook, is it? It's exposing it. It's a double attack move. It's actually on D5 as well. So when black played queen takes B5 here, he's actually not just taking the piece, he's trying to protect D5. So is this attack still very good here? Knight takes F7. Black dare not take that with the king because the rook takes H7. He played actually knight E7. Okay, so in this position, now white is material up. He's got two rooks, bishop and knight against, yes, he's the exchange up. Check, bishop takes, rook takes. Now white just wants to play queen H3 here and carry on his attack. G6 seems solid at the moment, so going for H7 is the better bet. We have rook A7 trying to defend things again, queen H3, and now the queen tries to tie down the white queen to the F3 square, or try to get maybe this passed pawn going. It seems pretty desperate, but not much really black can do here. Rook takes H7. So in this position we have queen takes C2. Yes, is there enough time for black to queen this pawn? Well, actually it doesn't seem as though it's a great prospect at the moment. Black is actually facing the firing squad here. Black's king, that is, rook H8 check, queen H7 check, and it looks for a moment, hang on, isn't the black king escaping here, potentially to the queen side, and then maybe black can look forward to getting a check in on F3 and queening the pawn sneakily? Not really. All the hopes and dreams are crushed here with this next move, which I think you can guess if I give you 5 seconds. Okay, rook takes G6. And here, black resigned, and I'll just quickly put on a Qe2 in this final position, just to go over. It's a forced mate, but there's a beautiful continuation. There's an absolutely beautiful continuation. Why this is a forced mate, in fact. Why isn't the king fleeing? And I would love to test you on this. After king D7, now what would you be tempted with here in this position? Well, actually there's two moves which are leading to mate, so it's no big deal, but there's a more spectacular continuation in this position, so you'll get like 500 points for both really. White to play here if I give you 5 seconds. It's all winning anyway, but there's a spectacular queen takes E7 check, and actually the two rooks are mating here. Rook H6 mate, but also the less prosaic move rook D6 is also a forced mate. Queen takes E7, rook B6. This is forcing a mate. Actually, next move, if here queen takes B7, that pinned bishop. Yes, brutal stuff. Absolutely brutal. So this is one of the reasons I kind of gave up the French defense. Actually, it encapsulates many of the underlying problems the French defense sometimes has. That when you give your opponent a free hand, it's such a cramped position. Often you get in the French defense, in certain variations, you get such a cramped position that there's a lack of defensive resources. And there's really, you wonder, why didn't you play a Sicilian defense? But then when you play the Sicilian defense, there's all these anti-Sicilians like the C3 Sicilian. So you can't. Your opponents are making sure you're not having a good time in chess. That's the key common thing about chess. Here, by the way, this is just a quick slaughter with Queen D6, checkmate. So yes, the attack crashed through. It's a game which there's something very interesting about White's opening moves in particular, slightly offbeat moves. Bishop D3 and this Knight A4, encouraging Black to release the tension. So the precursor for a fantastically strong attack was already set, and that's maybe the clever part of this game. Not what happened after, but what happened after was superb. The way the G file was opened up. The Bishop B5 was a star move, completely overloading Black, giving opportunities for Bishop E8 and E6 in many variations. A beautiful attacking game from January this year, I believe, and I think you might agree. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.